Hello and welcome to another edition of Storytelling on Orchard Street. I'm your host, Pete Salamita, and we're in the podcast studios of P&T Knitwear Bookstore on 180 Orchard Street, Lower Manhattan, Lower East Side. It's a really good bookstore. They have lots of great titles of books you can peruse and hopefully purchase. There's a nice cafe in the back, and they have events. You should check their calendar for interesting events. My guest today is Stephen Seidenberg. Stephen is a writer and artist. His literary work uniquely explores the interstices between philosophical, diegetic, and poetic discursive timbers. He is the author of Coda, which is on Omnidawn 2025, and Anon on Omnidawn 2022, and Plain Sight Roof Books 2020, and I hope I say this right, Situ, Black Sun Lit 2018, Null Set Spooky Action Books 2015, and Itch Raw Art Press 2014, and numerous chapbooks of poetry and aphorism. His books have been published in Swedish, Italian, Portuguese translation, and his collections of photographs include The Architecture of Silence, Abandoned Lives of the Italian South, it's on Contrasto 2023, and Pipe Valve Berlin on Loduma Press 2017, and the forthcoming Kanazawa Vacancy, Chin Music Press 2026. He has had solo exhibitions of his visual artwork in various venues in the U.S., Japan, and Italy, Germany, and Mexico. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Pete.
Did I butcher any of those publishing companies?
No, I think you got them all pretty well.
You know, you could practice something, and then when you start reading it for real, doesn't always come out correctly.
Yes.
Okay. Well, welcome. Did you drive or fly from Boston?
Drove.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Probably a lot less money.
Yes, and a lot less hassle at the moment.
Yeah, and who wants to be in airports these days?
Yes, I'd like to avoid any encounter with ice under any circumstances.
Yeah. So we have a lot to talk about. As I think it was mentioned here, you're a poet, writer, and a photographer. By the way, you gave me two of your books. I'm gonna hold them up for the folks. They're fantastic books. And I did look at your photography online. You're quite the photographer also.
Thank you. Yeah. So
we're going to go back into your background a little bit before we get into talking more about your work and hear you read some of your work. So you mentioned your folks lived here in Brooklyn and Manhattan?
They grew up my father grew up, was born and grew up first part of his life in Lower Manhattan.
Okay.
In the tenements, and then Queens later in life. My mother was in Brooklyn and then also in Queens later in life.
Right.
Yeah.
And where'd you grow up?
I grew up in South Jersey near Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
All right.
So, yeah.
Cool. So growing up, what influenced you to become a writer? Like, when did you start writing? We're going to talk mostly about your writing, but we could also discuss your photography. Which came first, the photography or the writing?
Yeah, about the same time, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just started reading work that was interesting to me pretty early, poetry, and then also philosophical literature became important to me from a fairly young age.
Wow.
I stumbled upon some things and somehow managed to chart an autodidactic course through that literature for a little while.
Were either of your parents artists or writers? Or
They were not. Neither of them went to college, and they were
working class people.
Working class people.
Yeah, same with my family. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You have siblings?
I do. I have a brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does he do either of those things?
He does. He's a rabbi and a rather progressive and interesting rabbi whose work is focused on the relationship between Kabbalah and Kabbalistic literature and ecology, contemporary ecology, and then he's also a composer.
Wow. What type of music does he compose?
He's been working on various forms of contemporary classical music now
Nice.
for a few years. Yeah.
Cool. I didn't know rabbis had the time to do.
He's not a congregation rabbi. He's a scholar rabbi.
Oh, okay.
And an activist rabbi.
Where does he?
He's in Northampton, Massachusetts. So not far from where I am now in Boston.
Okay. So you said early on in your life you got interested in. When did you get your first camera?
First camera, a Brownie, and that was...
because we're both old enough to grow up with cameras, not iPhones.
Indeed.
And not digital.
Yes. And I had an uncle who had a darkroom.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So I was able to shoot and then develop my film, my black and white film at least.
Right.
And that was an early interest in visual. I also was at an early age interested in other kinds of image making with drawing and painting as well.
Okay.
So, which I still do some.
Do you ever use film cameras or is it all digital?
I do. Most of my capture is digital now. When I use film, and I still do shoot film sometimes, all of my printing is done digitally. So it's sometimes done with photographic processes, but I'll scan the negatives and then print them through digital mechanisms. It's a much more convenient way of printing and much more flexible in terms of its expressive possibilities.
Right. I mean, I've had other guests that are proficient at two artistic mediums, but you're pretty impressive because your writing is it seems very I don't know how do you describe it, because it's very like even one poem there's so much in one poem.
Yes, it's
and
very
then
dense.
It's very, I was going to say dense, but I don't know if that was a good word for you.
Oh, that's fine.
And it seems like it would take a long time to put together these books that you do, because each poem seems like my poem, most of my poems I write like in minutes.
Right.
But it seems like you must have to spend a lot of time on each one.
It takes me years to complete one of these works.
I would imagine, yeah. Right. Anyway, so before we get more into that, because there's a lot to talk about there, I still want to get a sense of, I like to find out how people's journey goes from growing up to then, doing what they do as artists. So you grew up here. Did you moved around? Is that what you said? You moved around?
No. I spent most of my growing up years from 4 years old to 16 or so in South Jersey.
Okay.
With my grandparents in New York, so coming to New York quite a lot, extended family in New York. And then I actually, a somewhat idiosyncratic path. As I mentioned, I was concerned with and even, one might say, obsessed with philosophical literature and some forms of poetic literature as well. And that obsession superseded all other activities for me at that particular time. And the result was I dropped out of high school.
Wow.
But I was extraordinarily lucky, and someone figured out that I might be a good candidate to go to something called Simon's Rock of Bard College. So
wow.
Bard College used to have, I think they've changed it in some way, but for many, many years, for many decades, Bard owned another campus called Simon's Rock that was for early admissions.
And where is this?
This is in Great Barrington, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And so I started as a freshman when I was 16.
Wow.
And then when I was 17, I transferred as a sophomore to Bard.
Right.
And then I finished at Bard when I was 20.
I'm taking it you're a smart guy.
I
was high school too, was it not enough challenge for you, or like what made you drop out, but then you go do something like this?
I really could not find a way to think about anything but the literary obsessions that were compelling me.
Were you a voracious reader?
I was a voracious reader, and I only cared about that, and I couldn't be distracted from it.
I see.
We
had real
in a
focus.
Compulsive way. I had real focus, and also I was a bit or significantly obsessive compulsive, and my freedom from those compulsive behaviors was in reading, and in particular in this experience of the Western philosophical tradition primarily as a kind of literary discourse. Not so I was reading, Kant, and I was also this was when I was 15, and also reading Joyce and reading Melville and other figures who remain important to me. But I didn't understand those discursive characteristics as distinguished from one another. I thought that Kant was a radical avant-gardist as a writer, and I still think that's true. And I think that within that tradition, when you look at it, that philosophical tradition, each moment, each great thinker that we generally pose as part of the canon is doing something that is attempting to invent a literary form. That's true until the late 19th century, even, I would say. That particular literary, and true of some offshoots of it even today, in terms of, say, post-structuralism in French writing. Those writers are all attempting to find a new form.
Okay.
They're all recognizing the inadequacy of the forms that came before. And so I knew that was my direction, also trying to find a new form, and that's part of what this work is about for me.
So there was a full college that.
Yes. Yeah. And then I graduated from Bard.
Okay. Right. And did you continue studies after that, or?
I did. Then I went and pursued and finished a PhD in philosophy after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you are a smart guy.
You know.
So am I wrong in saying that the two books that you gave me are similar in style?
You are correct. They are related to one another. The narratives are related.
So these are both, I mean, this is your newest one, is Coda.
Coda, yeah.
And I forgot, this is only a few years ago.
Yeah,
too.
a few years ago.
Was your previous writing like this, or did it take you a while to come to this?
It was like that. I mean, I've done some lineated work, some work that looks more like conventional poetry. And I've also done some aphoristic work, by which I mean to distinguish it from this work in the sense that the aphorism, one, fragment doesn't lead to the next necessarily, or not directly so. These works, Coda, Anon, and then two of my previous works, Ich and Situ, all of each fragment leads to the next fragment. So one is it has a narrative characteristic in a certain way.
Okay.
So that's, but I do, when I write lineated work, it's, more like discrete poems. And when I write aphorism, it's in kind of a different philosophical tradition, I would say, and a tradition that is maybe exemplified by people like, some 18th and 19th century French writers, or some 20th century French writers like Maurice Blanchot, for instance, or E.M. Chauran, these folks who are really using that form, that intensely fragmentary form, as a way of encoding social commentary of a particular kind.
I'm just curious, have you ever taught literature?
I have.
Okay.
I have, yeah.
Because you talk like a professor.
Oh, okay.
I was like, I should be taking notes.
No, I haven't taught. I haven't done it.
So
in
what
many
paid the
years.
bills after you got your PhD and now you're here today?
I taught for many years,
Okay.
and then my partner is
what
a
level,
professor
okay.
at college level. I was in various positions for a little while until my partner got a position out west, and we moved out west.
That's why you wound up in San Francisco?
That's how I ended up in San Francisco for about 20 years.
Okay.
And at that point, I stopped teaching. I wasn't where my passion was for sure. So I, not that I don't enjoy it in some ways, but I started pursuing more this kind of work and publishing this kind of work, which I had been working on, and finding an audience, attempting to find an audience for it while I was doing some other things, mostly editorial work for publishers academic presses, publishing philosophy work and things like that. So
Okay.
doing that kind of review and copy editing and proofing of that work because of my expertise in some of those materials. And then gradually, actually, the photography work has paid more of the bills. So as I showed more and had more ability to sell and have the work out there in different ways.
It's great that you have that dual thing going on.
Yes.
So I have a technical question.
Sure.
Or I don't know if this is a technical question. My eyes aren't that good, and I can't see the time on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen.
Yes.
What does it say?
15:33.
Okay. Thank you.
The elapsed time of the podcast so far.
Well, usually it's on here, but it's a long story. It's I don't think I need to bore the people, but I just wanted to get us. It's usually here too, but it's not right now. So so we're 15 minutes in, and that went really fast. So we're a quarter of the way in.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a good time for you to read your first piece.
Okay.
How's that sound?
That sounds fine.
Okay.
How long would you like me to read for this one? I mean, only in the sense that I could,
Well, start with one poem. Is that work?
Or why don't I read if I read a couple pages, you'll get like 2 pages, so maybe 4 minutes or something like that. Is that too long?
Yeah, cut that in half if you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just read the first couple of first page or so.
That's great.
So this is the beginning of Coda.
Okay.
Seeing we are at leisure, and that I may contuse your lungs with laughter no divinity will hear, I remind you I am nothing, I am no one, I am nowhere, a revenant innominate, and implore you call me anything your conscience and coincidence, your recognized resemblance would alloy to my good nature or unwittingly prefer. I am your humble witness, your deponent in this fracas, both eager to increase the spleen that draws your convalescence to its feral peak, its dreamless near, and to whirl another verticil of subterfuge and pretext as the forthcoming embodiment of ideal interlocutors demands. It may appear imprudent to profane the middle margins of this withering excursus with such malign solicitude and affable defiance, a contraindication to the manifest emergence, the clarity of purpose that led you to its doorstep. But that is not your business any more than my concern. I seek no consolation in some impotent avowal or its ersatz diagnosis, fixed within this harmony of negligence and disrepair. If indeed it's understood I have begun it all, and that by nothing more than this apportioning of paragraphs into such a melodious rose of a form, so be it. Each pedal tolls a counterpoint unheard since first dislimned this vengeful parody of progress.
It's quite something, man. So, I don't know if, I was just looking online just to try to get a sense of what you do. And I don't know if this is correct, but it's, one place I saw this said that you write a lot about memory isolation and the human condition. Is this apropos?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
I forgot where I got that from. I thought it was from your website.
Oh, I'm not
maybe
sure.
not.
Maybe some press thing on my website.
Does it sound reasonable? Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you tell me what.
Sure,
what
that sounds reasonable.
You tell me, like, the themes of the two books, are they related or?
They are related. I mean, they are related to questions of narrative, questions of memory as it pertains to marriage. So broadly speaking, how language works in relationship to memory and in relationship to the way in which we understand personhood, so to speak.
Okay.
And also, I would say it's concerned broadly with epistemological questions, what it means to know and both how we know and what it means to claim that a proposition is true. So these are big philosophical questions, as it were, but all are questions that have relationships to how we embody the world psychologically and through our ways of interacting with it.
Is there a connection to these concepts of these concepts to your photography? Or no, is your photography just a different thing?
There's a connection for sure. I mean, I am interested in that connection, though I think that I don't generally draw the connection quite clearly. I think there's a formal connection between the work in terms of the ways in which I use repetition as a rhetorical device and the way in which I understand repetitions of form as part of how one is pushing one's interlocutor, whether it's a visual interlocutor or a literary interlocutor, towards a particular kind of positionality. So I understand my work as a photographer as both, broadly speaking, aesthetic work, but also work that is conceptual in nature and in its mode of repetition and the like.
Okay.
If that makes sense to you.
Yeah. So I had a thought while you were talking,
Yeah,
and I
please.
just suddenly lost it.
Oh.
Do you consider yourself a philosopher that writes poetry or a poet that deals with philosophical questions?
I think that what I do, I think I'm both always at the same time. And I understand the poetic project as a kind of project that is a philosophical project in a way that mirrors in certain respects how philosophical literature works, but also can do things that strictly speaking, a descriptive literature of philosophy can't do. And that has to do with the character of poetic condensation and what's happening when one is working as a poet and how one is using the different mechanisms of ambiguity to suggest multiplicities of meaning and the ways in which those multiplicities can, again, suggest or even compel one's audience into a set of questions for themselves.
When you release these books, do you? I mean, here on this podcast, have you been doing any other podcasts, or do you read? Like, do you go to readings?
I do readings. I like doing readings and performances of the work.
Weren't able to set up anything while you were down here besides this?
Yes, not in this particular trip.
Right, but you do.
But I do. I just came back from a tour of a bunch of readings on the West Coast, for instance.
Do you ever do both at the same time? Like, in other words, when you have an art show up, you're in a different city, do you look into promote your reading, or you set up readings?
Yes.
Where you going?
Yes, I have many times, or sometimes if it's at a university, the university will have me read, and then also
show your work.
and the work is up. So I'll do a reading in the gallery when my work is up, and that's kind of fun. I enjoy that. Or I'll give a talk about the artistic practice, and an artist talk, as it were, and then also do a reading.
Right.
But yeah, I enjoy promoting the work, and I've done many podcasts actually since. This is the first time that I've done a lot of podcasts with Coda coming out, and that's been great. It's been a lot of fun.
Whoa. What was that?
That I don't know.
I guess that's outside. This we're right here on Orchard Street. I wish I could turn the camera around. There's people walking by. Sometimes, like, there's trucks that drop stuff off.
Sure.
I don't know if that's going to be picked up by the microphone, but I heard it.
Yes, I felt it. We could feel it.
I'm hoping it's outside.
Yes,
because if it was in the bookstore, that's kind of troublesome.
It's true.
Yeah. So it's just curious, because it seems like what you're doing is both things are really, big undertakings. Do you say, okay, I'm going to collect, I'm going to put, like, you compartmentalize them, or do you do them at the same time? In other words, you have these art books, of your photography, and you have the poetry. And the poetry is, like we said earlier, it's not simplistic. It's, seems like you have to put a lot of thought into it. I would imagine you write a poem, and then you probably have to spend a lot of time going over it and put the word in of it and stuff like that.
Yes.
So
the editing process is.
Do you say, all right, I'm going to spend the next year putting together a poetry book, or I'm going to concentrate on the photography, or does it just
They move in and out of each other. So it's really, I suppose, it's project based, and it's often based or directed towards a deadline, for instance.
Okay.
the photography work can come out of many different circumstances, including residencies and things like that. And then I'm shooting when I'm shooting. I'm not the sort of photographer who might just take a photo anytime. I have a project, and that's what I do. And then other than that, I don't shoot.
Right.
And even on
selfies.
I really have no interest in it.
No, you don't take pictures of your dinner and put it on Instagram.
I really won't.
Okay.
That's an intense practice in its own right. That can be very physically demanding.
Right.
And then there's the editing of the images and the bringing them together and the figuring out what works and what doesn't work in a particular photographic series. And there's, of course, new work, and then there's work towards, I have to work out the prints and the images that will be in a show that's coming up.
Right.
Or that will be in a book or a project that I want to propose. It's the constant hustle of an artist's life.
Sure.
You're always proposing.
You're making your living on this. It's not a side thing.
It's and if I didn't have a partner who had an actual paycheck, it would be much more difficult.
Is your partner the same partner that you moved to San Francisco?
It is.
So
we're still together
for that long. You're talking about 25 years.
28 years.
28 years.
Together. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. No, it's worked out well, and we work together quite a bit on.
Okay.
She's an anthropologist and an archaeologist and a curator. So my work in her as a photographer and her work.
So your partner was somebody that sounds like a multiple things going on and a very educated person also.
Yes, indeed. And we moved here for she's a professor at Boston University now.
Oh, okay.
So
right.
But we
teaching
archaeology. She's in the history of art and architecture department, but she's affiliated with the archaeology program, and she runs the preservation studies program there.
Okay.
Now, so
cool. What's her name?
Carolyn White.
Okay.
Yeah. And she's you might get to meet her afterwards.
Does she have something that she wants to promote on the podcast? You can give her a plug for something. I guess you don't need to if you're on a professor.
She actually, I will say, like this next photo book that's coming out, she often writes about my work. So this photo book for images from Kanazawa, Japan, that'll be out in the fall. She'll write a fairly substantial text about that work, which is
my
great.
wife does a lot of stuff for me. Like she designed my book, for instance.
Right, you were saying,
and she'll work on the podcast. She videotapes my variety show.
Oh, that's nice. That's great. That's a nice thing.
Edits it.
It's nice to have those relationships where you can work together. I mean, we do plenty of things separately, and my work, literary work, is really it doesn't overlap with her work. Much of her scholarship.
So she came down. She came down with you.
Yeah, we drove down together.
And she's going to meet you here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I started going.
All right. Oh, okay. Cool.
So she's in there, and so just in terms of like literary work, that often, for instance, I've been writing for decades, and I have manuscript, and it takes me decades to finish a manuscript.
I bet.
But
decades.
It can take decades. Yeah.
These books.
Yeah.
Ah.
I mean, I'm
not surprised because.
I work on them for a very long time, and then when it appears, I'm very lucky right now to have a publisher who supports my work in a somewhat old-fashioned way, where they essentially say, this is Omnidawn, you're one of our authors, and so every 3 years we publish a book of yours.
Okay.
And so
but the books have the writing in the book you've been working on for
decades.
Really, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So and I haven't finished them until now. So I finished them on the way to their publication and on the way to the deadline.
So it's just curious, how much, so if you're taking poems that you wrote 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
When you look at them before you put them in a book, do you change them? Do you say, your philosophy in life might have changed a little, or your view of life, or does it still resonate the way? Or do you say, I wrote that. That's how I wrote it. It's going to remain that way, or
I've been working on all of them in more or less active ways
Okay.
over the whole period.
All right. So you
they're
look at them again.
I've looked at
take
them
'em
again
out,
many,
right.
many times.
Right.
And so for me, the process goes through a few stages. I mean, a primary writing stage, which is, maybe writing by hand and then transcribing onto through a word processor or something like that, typing it up, which is the first edit. And then it's reading the work over and over again, rewriting over and over again. And it happens, of course, there is... nothing is ever finished. Things are abandoned.
Sure. Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
They're given over to the way in which they'll live in the world apart from you.
Do you have thoughts for future books? And if so, are they also going to be things that you've been working on for this long also?
Yeah, there are many things there. I do occasionally, in order to have something in 30 years, I have to start something now.
Well,
or 20 years or 10 years as the case
these
may
two
be.
books came out pretty short period of time.
That's right. So these things I've been working on for a long time, and then I found interest from the press in this project. So there'll be the next book, which will come out in 2028 from Omnidawn.
Plans already. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
that will be, and that's what I'm working on now. Finishing it's a kind of trilogy, a non-Coda and the next book, and which I haven't titled yet.
Right.
So
I feel like these books are on the level that they could be picked apart they could be a coursework for. Do you see it that way? Like
Sure.
For
Yeah.
students.
I hope that it will.
Well, that
I mean,
happens.
when I would be, I would not find it problematic to imagine, or I don't find it problematic to imagine people trying to figure out what certain things mean and having discussions about the ways in which.
Right. But would you
they
want to
might be
teach it?
wrong.
Or
Would I want to teach my own work? I mean, sure. It's I don't really want to be a college professor particularly, but I don't mind talking to people about my work, and I don't actually feel like I have priority in deciding what it means.
How about this? How about you read a poem and then talk about it?
Okay. Oh, well, sure.
Is that okay?
That's okay.
Or am I putting you on the spot?
No, I can talk about it. I mean, I can talk about it in relation. It's hard to because of the ways in which these books move across. They're the fragments that are that constitute, say, the 7 chapters of this book. At the same time, this book Coda, that is, and at the same time, it is a kind of, if you want to call it a single poem, you could as a
The book is as a poem. Right.
As a poem in itself,
right?
And so it's all, and it's also a kind of narrative, a kind of a novel of sorts, and it's also a kind of philosophical work.
But do you spend a lot of time in the order of the poems in the book?
Yes, they're written in this order. In the case of aphoristic work, and the published work that you can find of mine is from a New York press called Roof Books, called Plain Sight, from a few years ago. And that is because that really, since the particular pieces, particular fragments don't relate directly to each other, the way in which they're ordered, of course, makes a significant difference. There's an old kind of game in the philosophy world we have not very much of the pre-Socratics. We have 40 or so fragments from Heraclitus. And it's interesting to realize how differently we can understand the positions that Heraclitus is arguing dependent on how we order those fragments, because we don't have the order of those fragments in any clear way, any distinct way.
The publisher Omnidawn, what is your work indicative of what they put out? I'm just curious. Or are you different from the other writers?
I think it's indicative in the sense that they are definitively a press for what would broadly be called experimental poetry. They don't do really anything that one would call mainstream.
I see.
But I think that my work is generally different from other work. I think I'm doing something that's quite different
I
from
think
what
so.
anybody else
Well,
is doing.
I haven't
but,
read anything like it,
Yeah.
but again, I'm not a scholar.
well,
I'm like a punk rocker kind of.
sure.
I have something to say, but I'm not educated. I mean, I'm just being honest.
No,
I'm
you're
not
great. It's great. It's great to talk to you about
yeah.
this
I'm
stuff.
not educated
Oh, it's-
in the way you are, for sure.
Oh, that's okay. That doesn't matter.
But why don't you read something, and if you feel like
Yeah, I'll just. Why don't I just continue from where I just
Sure.
read before?
okay.
Let us recall together then my life upon the main, my longing to evade the undiscovered throes of some fated ontogeny by plotting a surrender to the fleeing tide, the leeward gaze, and the subsequently ascertained mendacity of my disclosures amidst the bleary slur of lo these many fickle thrusts and jaded parries. Indeed, the mere acceptance of my previous imposture, convening such reproof to its rhetorical avail, serves to guarantee this stipulated misadventure, without which my confession would never have acceded to the differential patter of its lyric gale. And though I know that some of you have firstly been informed of my foremost compendium of escapades and apothegms by this crude affidavit of its sanative effects, through said conjecture having been apprised of where the thrilling chronicle of its return to relevance broke off, I anticipate an interlude in my circumlocution is of so little import to your expected entree into its remitting midst, you won't give it a second thought. I surmise, that is to say, the concomitant consonants resulting from your bearing board aboard the redirected transport of this rotted husk, this leaky float, allowing that our comedy contrives a fixed reliance, a near interdependence of reciprocal directives in the dispatch of this codex of seductions and bereavements, from bottle set adrift athwart the echo of the waves to anonymous receiver on some distant shoal.
So, what do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, the beginning of this book in particular, and in general, my work, one of the chief concerns in my work is this largely unexamined relationship between writer and reader. So this you that I'm directing towards is, of course, anyone who's encountering the text. And it's imagining this relationship as one of cooperation, but one of antagonism as well.
Okay.
One is asking a lot of a reader, and then one is also attempting to corral one's readership into a way of thinking and a way of being through immersion in a kind of linguistic milieu.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm both aware of how difficult and tempting both that may be to a reader, and also how that resistance may form in a reader to the work. And I want to express my relationship to that resistance and my acceptance of and even embracing of that resistance. At the same time, there's much of this is positioned, you could say, partially in relationship to Anon, but so I'm talking about a previous work, right? And I'm saying, I don't think you've read this work, but if you had, imagine how wonderful it would be. And I make the same claims in Anon, of course. But in both cases, there is a relationship in particular to this sense of the way in which Moby Dick begins, and the way in which Melville starts out.
All right.
In his attempts to lure the reader into an adventure which is really a language adventure rather than a novelistic adventure in many respects.
I have to say this.
Okay.
It's nothing to do with what you're saying. So, but you brought up Moby Dick, and it just came to my head.
Please.
A long time ago, maybe 30 years ago. I went away with, I mentioned my friend, the drummer that does
You
music
did.
with, right. He actually does a theme song. But we went away with our wives to, was it upstate or was that when we went to, no, I think we went to Vermont. Anyway, we're on the way back, we'd been together for a long time. We're getting kind of silly. And we started talking about, well, we should write a musical, Moby Dick. And we started, coming up with songs that would be in it.
Sure.
And for years we'd say, yeah, we got to do that musical. We got to do that musical. And now there's a musical.
Is there?
There's a Moby Dick musical.
Is there here in New York, like on Broadway?
Yeah, I think it's off. I think it's off Broadway.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we're getting off subject.
Yeah.
Are there current writers that you feel like are compatible to you, or
I mean, there are many current writers whose work I love.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there are. I don't know of many writers who are doing the sort of work that I'm doing. There are historically writers who do the sort of work that I do.
Okay.
And I would.
But they're just dealing with historical details, not.
Oh no! I mean, like there are writers in the. There are other writers in literary history that are doing, but like specific. So right. Fernando Pessoa, for instance, is a big influence, or Clarice Lispector, the two Portuguese writers, one Brazilian, one Portuguese, continental Portuguese, or Beckett, for instance, is a huge influence for me, especially Beckett's prose, as you can probably hear in the work, and a number of other philosophical writers. I mentioned Blanchot earlier, but also even I would say Derrida or to some small extent Lyotard, and some. And this is in terms of style, not necessarily in terms of content of writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you speak other languages?
Not as well as I'd like to.
Oh, okay.
I read
because you mentioned Portuguese. I was just wondering.
But
you wrote this Portuguese writer that you're talking about.
Fernando Pessoa.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was translated.
It's translated.
Okay.
And I'll read that translated. I have a reasonable reading knowledge of French and German, which I needed to have as a graduate student.
I see.
I still use. But, yeah.
So, what's next for you? I mean, art project or the book that's going to come out in a couple of years? Like,
I'm working on that
focus?
and working on the book that's coming out next year, the photo book. Both of those things, and
you said it's photographs you took in Japan.
In Japan, in a city on the west coast of Japan, on the inland sea called Kanazawa.
And what's that city like?
It's a city of great cultural significance to the Japanese. It's the second largest city after Kyoto to never be bombed or burned.
Oh.
And it's...
how old of a city is it?
Oh, I think it goes back to the earliest days of Japanese culture, to the 9th century or some such. And
what brought you there?
A residency initially, and I was doing some other work, and had at the same time I'd started doing some work in Tokyo, a few series in Tokyo, and had a show in Tokyo, and then a show in Kyoto as well. And we ended up in this residency in Kanazawa, and I started taking these images, which are of essentially vacant lots in this city of Kanazawa, and it's a monochrome series.
Like old vacant lots or garbage?
Or recent lots that have been where essentially Kanazawa has gone through. It reflects many of the demographic shifts in Japan. The population is diminishing, and many of the young people move to larger cities for work. But it's still a city of great cultural significance, and has lots of wooden structures that are quite old but very difficult to fix because it's so expensive, and the craftsmen don't exist any longer in the same way. So many of those buildings end up torn down, and there is really no reason to rebuild on those lots when they do. And I found it.
So when you say lots, it's completely barren, or there's still some like structures left? Or?
No, like no structures, and then a vacant lot between them, and then structures and a couple of vacant lots. And then what happens on those lots? Sometimes they'll pave them. Sometimes they are left to return to a kind of natural processes. So much begins to grow. And, so it's interesting, and for me, visually quite interesting, and allowed for an exploration of certain types of compositional structure around negative and positive space.
So you said residency. You went there with a specific project, like it was your idea or was somebody else's idea?
Well, I didn't have a specific project. It was someone else's idea to invite me to come and stay as this, kind of one of the ways that the art world works. Sometimes writing world too. Sure. You apply for a residency, or a residency invites you to come and do some work.
In this case, it was you were invited.
Yeah, and you do, and they put you up, and they give you a stipend for. And it was in association with the art school there in Kanazawa. There's a fairly significant art university, and so over the course of my time there,
How long were you there?
Initially, I think the residency was 3 weeks, and then subsequently, I've gone once I figured out what the project was. I've gone back many times, so I've spent probably a couple of months in total.
So it was a good experience for you?
It was great. Oh yeah. I love spending time in Japan, and have loved showing work in Japan. And working with Japanese artists and curators has been really a great experience for me.
Great.
And I've also done, I do readings there sometimes. There's an English language poetry community there. Small but active. Some interesting writers, and yeah. So and then the other things coming up. Just to say, since we were talking about this moments ago, I'll be in Rome for a couple of months, from the middle of May to the middle of July, with a book of mine, my aforementioned book, Plain Sight, coming out in Italian translation. And then this book, Coda, the new book, is coming out in Portuguese translation around the same time. So I'll do some events in Italy and some events in Portugal as well.
So what are you going to do in a few months?
You're
going to be there for a few months?
Yeah. So
and this is just for the writing, not for the photography?
Well, I also have a lot of photography projects that are based in and around Rome. So
great.
That, in particular,
this sounds exciting.
Yeah. So for many years, I've been working in and around the squatted buildings and communities of unhoused Italians and migrants within the greater Rome metropolitan area, and photographing the domestic spaces that these communities have manufactured out of otherwise abandoned spaces, which are extraordinary.
You've seems like you've carved out a pretty decent life for yourself.
Oh, I tried. Yeah. Yes, I think so too.
Yeah, I mean you're doing two great art projects, music. I mean poetry and photography, and you're going to interesting places, doing interesting things.
Yes. Yes, it's been good. I've enjoyed it.
You're successful.
Well, we do what we can.
Just check me. Are we at around 47 minutes or so?
Let's see. Yes, we are. 48 minutes.
40 minutes. Okay. Why don't you read something else, and then I might read something too, and then we'll close out.
All right. Why don't I'll read from the end of the book, just a couple of little bits, if you like.
Of course.
My silences are silent, they are plural in the singular and singular en masse. The silences will come, as will the silence. It never left, but one will be aware of it, of them. That will prove the difference from one moment to the next. Unless it's the final silence, which it always is, always this time when it's coming, never after it's progressed. If it didn't promise to end, to take the place of all that would define it by a sudden interruption of the breath, then there would only be this voice, my voice for all eternity, its mewl and howl and gasp, its convulsive clink and jangle, its litany of answers to a question never asked, and finally its proffer of a rattle and a plectrum, the frenzy of an utterance, a melody, a contraction and recovery, between beginning and ending, gaining ground, losing ground, getting lost, but somehow, in the long run, making headway towards a stasis that resembles a concern for truth. So the waning light expires, while in the darkness that ensues we fall away into the shadows. Here and there, true to their place, if not their patterns, swing sterile planets tethered to the sky, extinguished by exhaustion or by such cunning occupants as the heat of life annoyed, who wanted to sleep in their sheds and boxes, their woods and moats and caverns, as those who would not wake again or hitch their abdication to the banquet of the shine. No need to be far, no need to be near, without pity or scruple, fecund and barren and uncertain at the same time, to bear, then spark, then drive to ruin, in order to rise from the usual murmurs, in practice to dream where I am is a place, the last place. The dream of place is the last place, the final placement, and the spent world in tranquility and rancor. It isn't word, it isn't flesh. The artifice of defacers, I'll begin again before.
Oh, so, man, wow.
Thank
So is the next book, there's going to be a connection to this book? Or?
Yeah, roughly speaking.
Yeah.
Roughly speaking.
Because it's
Well-
like it's both. They've both been written over this
Yes,
similar period
there's
of
still
time.
there's still a lot of it that has to be written, but yeah,
Right.
there are
So
will
some
be
of it
many
will be-
references
yeah,
to this book,
right.
but it won't be required that you know this book to read the
Okay.
next book, or this book, or the last book to read this book.
Right.
Yeah.
So have we? Is there something that we haven't discussed that's important to you that you would want the listeners or viewers know about you as an artist, a writer? Or
No, not particularly.
Right.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think it's been a fairly thorough conversation. I've
Okay.
enjoyed it a great deal.
Cool. So if I'm correct, we're like around 52 minutes in or something like that. I'm just going to read one poem.
Please.
Okay. This one's called Decayed, and I don't talk about my book that much, but I guess I should give it a plug. It's called From Here to Institutionalized. My wife's a designer, Jill Vanitsky, and we put it on Storytelling on Orchard Street Press. I don't know that I am going to put other books of mine, but
maybe
we
you might
left-
publish other people.
I left it open. Well, I had an idea, but it's not as easy as it. It will take some work, so I'm not sure we're going to do it. But we could collect works from the people that have been on the podcast and do an anthology. So that's a possibility. Anyway, this is called Decayed. Not everyone can see the beauty in decay, a face growing wrinkled, aged and wise, flower withering on the vine, a song fading away once high on the charts, dance steps in motion not quite in time, lover's embrace worn out and tired, something said off in the distance, a voice not heard. Paperback turned yellow with dog-eared pages torn aside, bright, agile minds, stutters a synapse and not charged, raging river rumbling through rocks smooth in the sides, cracks in the foundation of civilization once proud, our lives flashing by on a dirty old screen. It's all grist for the mill, a friend once said, stories unfolding, the ending not quite yet written, decayed. And the photograph that accompanies it actually is kind of important to me. It's like brush or whatever. I was going through a park in the town where my parents, where I grew up and where my parents lived, and then eventually died in. And I was on the way to visit my father in the hospital, and there was snow on the ground, and these plants popping up from the snow. Stopped and took a picture. So it's, it fits the image fits the poem, and it also makes me think of my father. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
So where are we at now? Like 50-something, 55?
54.
All right. We have time for another poem if you want.
Oh, sure. If you like.
Yeah. Would I
Unless
be
you
putting
wanna
you on the
talk-
spot if you to read from one from here? Or is that?
No. Sure.
How's that
Happy
sound?
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I came prepared. So this is from Anon.
This is from Anon, and let's see, what should I read from? I'll find something. I could just read from the beginning again, of course. Let's do it. All the same, I thought myself a less likely pauper than corpse, and approaching both with neither speed nor trepidation, dreamed the dreary languor of this medial repose a passage to the nearest port, where I might yet be freed of the compulsion to believe myself conscripted to the screed of fixed horizons. It is my way to grieve what once was mine, to beat perforce another path. When loosed from all the self-effacing credos of a fool, I can again, if not at last, exude the fetid humor of this incidental gash, a glancing wound that ever bleeds from nowhere towards the real. When I promenade in lockstep with each funeral procession I encounter on my way, and find in every prized and praising eulogy the giddy stimulation of solicitous reproach, when every faint distortion seems a respite from the swooning obligations of a tortured light, and no other can declaim a greater purpose than this shrift, lacking in composure the enchantment of utterance or caress, I croon the sonant gospel of extinction with a forced anomic smile, to flow again as water spilled and gathered to the sea.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
So it's been great talking to you. Is there something coming up that you want to promote? Are you doing any read-ins, any photography shows?
I have a big show right now, a big solo show at a museum in Reno, Nevada, which you're called the Lilly Museum, called Home Truth, and it's with selections from a few different series of mine.
Is it a solo exhibition?
It's a solo show.
Right.
And so that's if anybody finds themselves out west in that way. Right. And I think I'm in the process, I hope, of arranging a reading down here in New York. Okay. Either sometime in April, or it might be in the fall.
Well, how can people keep up with you as an artist, a photographer, and a poet?
My website and is just my name, Steven Seidenberg, Steven with a V, .com, and my Instagram. Right. Also.
Okay. Well, we'll put up both of that information on the screen at the end. Okay. Great. Although if somebody's just listening and not watching it, they won't get it. Do you want to give out your Instagram handle or
I think it's Steven.Seidenberg.
Yeah, well, I guess they could just take your name and
it's pretty
and search
easy
to
find me.
Yeah. You're not a hard guy to find.
No.
So we're coming to the end of our podcast, Storytelling on Orchard Street, recorded in the podcast studio of P&T Knitwear Bookstore. It's a great place to come. It's a great bookstore, and this is a bustling neighborhood. I don't know if you remember what it was like here 30 years ago. So
yes.
It's quite different, but there's a lot of, there's cats around the corner, which is a landmark, but there's lots of restaurants and anyway, so again, Steven, thank you so much, Steven Seidenberg, for being here and sharing your fantastic reading poems from Coda and then just now from Anon and talking about your photography and art.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I wish you luck. And the project in Rome sounds great. You don't need an assistant, do you?
Why not?
Well, anyway, thank you all for listening, and thank you again, Steven, for being here. And I hope you all go and check out Steven's. You can go on his website to see some of his photography. And is your poetry anywhere online that you can see?
It is.
Samples of it?
I'm sure somewhere. One thing I will say is that I've done audiobooks of my last 3 books.
Oh, that's a great thing to mention.
Yeah, and they are free to download.
Did you read them?
I did read them.
Oh, okay.
So both Anon, Coda, and my work before that, Plain Sight, all you can see on my website, or you can even just find them on iTunes or Spotify or Audible. Any of those
That must have been a project.
Yes, yes, indeed. But please feel free.
It must have taken a bit of time to do that. Anyway, Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon for another edition of Storytelling on Orchard Street.